as a people, there's a hidden history that we really don't know about as a people. And that history is that we as a people, a specific people, have been kicked out of almost every Western European country in mass. And given the political environment that we're living in now, I just think we need to be aware of things that are going on, because if we don't know our past, we don't know our history, these things can happen again. So now, when I start talking about being kicked out of every country, I mean literally kicked out of every country. So let's look at when black people were expelled from these Western European countries. So we were kicked out of England in the 1200s. A whole group of people were kicked out of England in the 1200s and again in the 1400s. We were then kicked out of parts of Italy and then also the Netherlands in the 1300s. We were kicked out in mass out of France in the 1400s. And we were kicked out of Spain and Portugal in the 14 and 1500s, and then taken into slavery. And this started the transatlantic slave trade. Now, we were kicked out, everything's documented. And, at this particular time, of course, these were the black Jews that were kicked out of these nations. And that's the hidden history that we don't know about. All right, so when we look at this and we go back and we study history and we look at all of the old records, this is an old record from 1670, a 1670 book, and it records that when the Jews were kicked out of all of these different places, they went to Africa. This is documented, and I'll provide the documentation for you if you need it. And this 1670 book is a book called Africa, being an accurate description of the regions of Egypt, Barbia, Libya, the land of the Negroes, Guinea, Ethiopia, and Abyssinians. And part of it reads that many Jews are scattered over this region. Now remember, we're talking about Africa. He says, some natives boasting themselves of Abraham's seed, inhabiting both sides of the river Niger. Others are Asian strangers. And when they say Asian strangers, here it means from like the Turkey area. It said, who fled thither either from the desolation of Jerusalem by Vespasian or from Judea, wasted and depopulated by the Romans. So it's saying that Africa is filled with those who ran when the Romans invaded Jerusalem and kicked all of the Jews out of that area. They went to Africa, and it's being documented here. And it said depopulated by the Romans, even when the Persians came in and done it, and by the Saracens and the Christians. When the Christians were persecuting the Jews, like in Spain and Portugal, they always went to Africa. It said, or else such as came out of Europe when they were banished. So this gets into the banishment of the black Jews. It said, out of some parts of Italy in the year 1342, out of Spain in the year 1462, out of the Low Countries in 1350. The Low Countries, that would be the Netherlands. And then it said out of France in 1403, out of England in 1422. He said, these all differ, inhabit, and are divided into several tribes, having no dominions, though both wealthy and numerous, but despised of all nations, and so abominated by the Turks that they are not admitted to Mohammedans unless first baptized, and then no otherwise made use of than to receive their customs and gather in their taxes. Then it goes on to talk about how many had settled in Mozambique to the Cape of Good Hope, and it said the islanders are numerous in Negroland. So now it calls it Negroland. So this whole region where the black Jews were escaping to was called Negroland. And then it also says Upper and Lower Ethiopia and towards the Great Ocean, except, as we hinted before, some few who were by the industry of the Portuguese and Spaniards have been converted and baptized in several places. So this is telling us right here that the Jews, black Jews, were spread all over the African continent. And so when we look in this map, this map is a 1700s map that's actually called Negro Land, and it's showing where all of the Negro or Jews were spread out through that particular region. So here's additional information on how the Jews looked that were coming out of Europe. And so this document in particular is talking about the Spanish and the Portuguese Jews, and it says that an interesting gradation of all studies down to the black is exhibited by the Jews. It goes on to say, especially dark were the Jews of Spain and Portugal. The Portuguese Jews were very dark. The Duchess, or the wife of Napoleon's ambassador to Portugal, said that the Jew, the Negro, and the Portuguese could be seen in a single person. It says, so dark were the Jews, especially of Portugal and southern Spain, that many whites thought all Jews were black. He said, and so you just can't get away from these resources that keep verifying these things. Another quick resource, when we zoom in on the map of Negroland, we come to an area that's called the Kingdom of Judah, or Ouida. All right, and it's also considered to be the slave coast. This is where a lot of the Portuguese slavers went and gathered the slaves up and took them to the Americas. All right, so check this out. This book, 1860s book, explains why they use those names, Ouida or Judah. And it says Ouida in Judah is a city, an old city frequented since the 16th century by the Portuguese slavers who gave it its name. Its inhabitants were said to be Judah, and they were indeed considered as a remnant of the scattered tribes of Israel. It said in the north, the Allah River, whose true name is Ephra, became the Euphrates for scholars. So this is a great resource. And so why am I bringing this up? Because the political atmosphere that we're in right now, the laws that are coming out with this Project 2025, and the lackluster efforts, even on the other side with the Democrats, it just seems like there's a concerted effort by both sides to group us into this category so that they can do what they want to do with us. And that was part of the strategy during the times that they kicked us out of these countries. They would demonize us first, and they would get everybody against us, and then in mass they would kick us out. And this is the strategy that's being used right now. Now, will they succeed? I don't know. At some point they might, but we should be aware that who we are, and we should be aware of the tactics that they're using, and understand their end goal. If they've kicked us out of every other Western European nation, is there anything that would at least dull their motive to try to do it again? So anyway, I just wanted to give this historical text. There's a lot more, we have a lot more historical text that support, that we're the same people over here that was being kicked out over there. Shalom.